Anybody have questions regarding the last couple section we had? No. Okay. So I'm thinking about talking about dependent origination. That's a very core principle in Buddhism. But before we talking about that, I want to because we talking about Kalama Sutra last time, and we're talking about karma, and I kind of like missing a couple points, so I want to touch up that before we move on. So so we talk about the short karma is like deed or action, either action, thought, or mind, and speech. That's the three sources generate karma, and I forgot to mention it have to be intentional deed. That's the important thing. Volitional, because only those that will generate the karma, and it will be a force that keep you in the reverse cycle, or where it direct you to the next life. So that's the key thing. So like for Arahant, they still do action, like they do thing normal, they speak, right? They speak, give speech, they do things, but they don't generate karma, because on the action, it's just purely action without any intention, without desire. So, and then another point I want to emphasize is we mentioned about the karma have the law of karma. From my point of view, is a specific, more specific. We know about the law of cause and effect, right? Every action, every cause have an effect. So it's applied pretty much across the whole range, both in our physical and biological world. But in karma, it's more specific. It's operate on the morality. So we're talking about wholesome action, wholesome deed lead to wholesome consequence, and then unwholesome deed will lead to unwholesome consequence. So it's working on the morality theme. And another point is the law of karma is very complex process. You cannot tell exactly what cause will lead to which effect. Some people say it's imponderable. It cannot comprehend. Only the Buddha or Arahant, which have a psychic power, be able to look back the past life. That's where they actually can tell what trigger what. But otherwise, like for lay person like us, we cannot say this action lead to that. So that's why some people have misconception or misunderstanding karma, say it doesn't work because there's injustice in the world. Some people do really terrible things, but they have a wonderful life. I mean, not wonderful, but they have wealth, power. Why other people do a lot of good things, but they suffer a lot? It seems like the law of karma doesn't apply or doesn't work. But if you look at that, of course, the cause and effect will tell you. If you, let's say you kill a person, kill something, it has an effect. It terminates an existence of something. It's the law of cause and effect take place, but the ending of that life might be the consequence, the cause from the past. that lead to what you make or what you kill that person. So it's not easy to tell what cause lead to what effect until you actually have certain power, like the Buddha or Arahant. And then once the karmic effect blossom or taking place, basically it will have its own cause to terminate. When it will end, we cannot actually try to influence or change the karma effect while it's taking place. And so that's why some people say, I'm suffering so much, I just kill myself, I'm ending it. But as long as the karmic effect haven't finished its job, you end your cell life, it's just carrying the next one. So it doesn't help. From that point of view, actually by killing yourself, you create another karma. That will enhance it. So that's why in Buddhism is you not try, you try to prevent. So we say karma have the main cause, and then there's other factor. Because one cause by itself cannot lead to a consequence. It needs additional factor, like you have orange seed. It cannot just grow into the orange tree. It needs some other factor like soil, water, fertilize, and then you have to take care of it so it can grow to a tree. So even though there's a seed there, but if you don't have a condition to meet the effect to take place, will not take place. So they are supporting a favorable condition which enhance the karmic effect take place, and the other is unfavorable condition which like inhibit when it can take place. So in a way you can delay the karma by do some wholesome action. Let's say you do a bad thing, bad deed, and you can delay it. It's not like the karma is there. Cannot go away. But you can delay when it takes place by do some other wholesome action. By provide unfavorable condition, it will basically defer it. But if the condition meet, it take place, then it will take place. You cannot prevent it. And even the Buddha himself is very powerful. The law of karma is very powerful. You cannot get away without subject to the law of karma. Even the Buddha himself, even though he's the enlightened person, or the Arahant, which is the same person, they still subject to karmic effect. They not making the new karma, but they still, as long as they carry this body and they live, they will subject to the karma effect, the past life, from the past life. And there's in the Sutra, there's a lot of example. Like we take example the Buddha himself. When one of the prince start killing his people, his clan, the Buddha cannot prevent it. Even though he tried to, not directly, if I remember the sutra say, tell is like he just know that the prince will take the army and go to his clan. start the war and destroy it. He just sit next to the path that leads to that. And the prince see the Buddha and ask why he sit under the tree without any, it's just without any leaf, just bare tree. And he say, well, family make you feel sense of happy. Indirectly, he tell the prince he realized he withdraw, but 3 times. After that, he then start his army to try do that again. For 3 times the Buddha tried, but he know he cannot prevent. So he eventually the war take place, and basically the prince, destroy most of the his clan people. So for himself, the Buddha say he have 3 days of a headache, and people ask what the cause, and he tell in the past his clan is like a fisherman, a village of fishermen, and they start fishing fish at the pond, and so they fishing out pretty much all of the fish except the last one. And when they catch the last one, the fish asking for mercy, don't kill. For himself, the boy at that time, he hit the fish 3 times on the head. And that's why the cause right now he have headache for 3 days. We don't know. That's what I remember based on what I read in the Sutra. Or another example for the Buddha is Devadatta. He's like a cousin of the Buddha, but he tried to take place of the Buddha because the Buddha say getting old, so he tried to become the one that replaced the Buddha, and so he tried different way to take the power, but unsuccessfully. And at the final act, he tried to kill the Buddha by rolling the big stone down the hill while the Buddha walking meditate. But because the past deed of the Buddha not cause the result is killing him, but one of the effect is the stone chip off from a small stone chip off from big stone hit the Buddha leg, cause injury. So those still a karma effect regarding to the life one. There's a lot of different examples with the Arahant. So what I'm trying to point is everybody is subject to that. We cannot avoid it, but doesn't mean that we cannot do anything about that. Some people say pretty much the law of karma make you become passive, inactive. Just accept what happened. In a way, I think it gives you hope that you are the creator of the karma. In one of, I think in one of the sutra, I don't know whether it's a Padadharma, Dhammapada, say you are the owner, you are the creator, you are the owner, and you are the inheritor of the karma. So you actually create your own karma, you own it, and then it's not go away. Once you dead, it's still there. You inherit that. So what you can do, you can change, like say change the condition when it can take place. So there's a story. I don't know what you hear about a man with 3 wives. Okay, so there's a man. He's the first wife is rearrange marriage, so have no other choice. The wife is plain old, he doesn't like her, but because of rearrangement, he have to follow his parent choice. So he just completely ignore her, treat her, rude, doesn't pay attention to her. But the wife not complaining. She's loyal. I mean, she asks whatever he asks, she obey. While for a while she get tired and she looking for another wife. So the next wife is a little bit younger, more attractive, more beauty. So he spends a lot more time with her, spend a lot of gift for her. Well, then over time he get bored. So this time he get a very young one, beautiful one, and this time this is the favorite wife. He spent most of the time with her by a lot of gift. So over the time he getting old, and then one day he gets sick, very sick, and about to die. So on his dying bed he called 3 wives, and he looked at the third wife, his most favorite wife, say, "Well, I'm about to die, but I don't want to be die alone. So you are my favorite one. Are you willing to die with me?" So the third wife think a little bit, say, "I'm sorry, I want to leave, but for being your favorite wife, the farthest that I can farewell to you is no longer at the front gate. So I stop at the front gate." So he's so disappointed. Then he looked at the second one, his second favorite, and say, "How about you? You are my second favorite." And the second wife thinking and big say, "No, I'm sorry, I'm still love to leave, but for being your favorite, I will go as far as your grave, but I'm not going to die with you." So he's like another blow. He's so disappointed and say, definitely the first wife will not die with him, but he will ask anyway. So he looked at the first wife and say, "How about you?" And the first wife say, "Well, all of time you ignore me, but I will die with you." So in this story, the third wife is represent wealth. The second wife represent title, power, fame, and the first wife is karma. So what do you think? Any opinion? So pretty much the story tell you most of us spend our entire life, and if you can reflect and examine back, most of us during entire life, what we do to accumulate wealth, all of us. And what else? We build our career, right? Power, title, and fame. And all that during that process, I mean, money is limited, the resource is limited, the position, your job, position, your title, power is limited, and a lot of people want the same thing. So during that process to acquire it, you have to do a lot of fighting, compete for that resource. You will generate many karma. I don't know, maybe lying, stealing, deceiving, maybe even worse, killing. Some people will willing to kill for the money and for power. And for what? All you accumulate, all what you gain, all the life, at the end, you cannot take with you. The money, as far as you can take, is at the front gate. Once you pass the front gate, it stay there. It's not come with you to the next life. The title and fame, they say, as far as go to the grave, it's just no more than the word inscribed on the tombstone, right? But nothing more. But nobody think, well, most of people think I come in this world empty-handed and I leave this world empty-handed. Well, I hope. But they don't know that because you come in this world, because your hand is not empty, and you leave this world, your hand is not empty. It's because the karma dictates why you being here. And during this process, living, accumulate wealth, and build up your title and fame, you generate karma, and those karma is the new one you take with you. It's invisible. Nobody know it. Nobody aware. But it's there. And that's what we call ignorance. So if I think back, reflect back what your life is, and it's pretty much that's it. So that's pretty much. I want to wrap up with karma. Any questions? Yeah.
Couldn't wait for you to say any questions. So I'm thinking about choice, control. So if I'm not conscious, which I guess even if I think I'm cautious, I think I'm making a conscious choice. Sometimes I'm not making a conscious choice. That means I'm not cautious. But you create these karmas there. So for example, when I came into this world, I already came with the karma you're saying. So I don't know what that karma is. I guess I could look at my life and all my character defects. That would be my karma, like if it's gonna be lying, cheating, and stealing, that would be my karma, yeah? But how do you have control over? Because it seems like you have to pay the karma back. So it seems like it's just a repetitious cycle until it's done with you.
Well,
or am I done with it?
That's what I say. You have control by provide the condition, by changing the condition when the karmic effect will take place. Thing like karma is the deed, the action you take place is already done. You cannot undo. Like if you kill a person, you cannot undo the killing. It's already done. Now, there will be a consequence, right? The only thing, and that is one of the question is what can you do? Like if the karma already took place, the Buddha say, feel guilt, feel repent, feel it will not help you in terms of alleviate the problem. It's actually increase the suffering. The best way is let it go. You don't think about that. It's happened. You don't think, but then what you do, you change the condition, and you will not make the same mistake again in the future.
How do you change the condition?
By doing deed, by doing good work, by doing wholesome deed. So the Buddha say there is 10 good deed, 10 good action. We're talking about 3 sources, right? The mind, the thought, right? And the body action and the speech. Now with regard to body action, there is 3 related to body action is killing, right? Stealing and adultery are inappropriate conduct. Pretty much it's more like general. Those related to your body, what you do with your physical body. And the other is speech. Speech there is four. Telling lie. And then the other is divisive speech, like you try to separate a relation, someone, like you listen to somebody tell bad thing about that person, you go to that person, tell back with the intention to break up their relationship, and then vice versa. So it's divisive speech. Coarse or rude speech, you say rude thing about other people. And then idle speech or meaningless speech or gossiping. So those is four things related to speech. And then three things related to the mind is craving, hate, and ignorance, delusion. Remember in Kalama, the Buddha say, okay, the wholesome, and what is wholesome is craving, hate, and delusion. And then he say, what is blamable? What is blame? Is killing, stealing, right, adultery, and lying. So those things is in Kalama, tell you what action is wholesome or not, or blamable or not. And based on that, you can tell what you should or should not do. Is that answer your questions?
We'll practice.
So that's why, remember, in the very first one, I say the Buddha teach you, it's three simple principles. Avoid doing bad, doing good, and then purify your mind. And purify, I mean, that's what the meditation means. Meditation means.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, anything? I mean, there is a different category regard to karma. I don't want to go dwell on that detail, how you classify karma. But that's the main point I want to emphasize. Even though if you don't believe karma, you don't believe in rebirth, and remember the Kalama tell you, even though you don't believe it, just by doing the right thing, then whether there is rebirth or not, whether there is a karma or not, if there is, then by doing the good deed, then based on the law of karma, you will get to a good place, good destination. But even if there's no rebirth or no karma, then by doing the good deed itself right in this life, your life's already in a good shape. So that's why if you think that way, then it makes a lot of sense. Okay. Well, I'm thinking talk about the Four Noble Truths, because as you know, the Four Noble Truths is a very first Dharma talk the Buddha give to his five disciples. It's also considered the turning the wheel of Dharma. But I think before we go that, we explore the dependent origination, because that, if you have that understanding, we say who have a penetrate inside or understanding of the Four Noble Truths or the dependent origination, you can liberate. So what does anybody know dependent origination? It's already covered in the first Kalama Sutra. Yeah.
Is that like cause and effect or not?
In a way, yeah, cause and effect. If you look, so the Buddha tell it can say, you can say dependent origination is if this exists, that exists. If this arise, that arise. If this cease to exist, that cease to exist. Or if this don't exist, then that don't exist. And if this cease, that cease. It's just a reverse of that. So what it tells you is there is more easy is a condition phenomenon. The emergent condition phenomenon come from the pre-existing one, or you can say it's a cause. Everything have a cause. So thing that arise and you say condition is because it have cause and condition that come together make a new phenomenon. That's what the whole thing. That's what it try to say is condition phenomenon is derived from or come from the pre-existing one. And you look, that's principle, that's will pretty much, you will see it everywhere. Everything exists that way. Like if you look at a house, it's made from different components, right? You have a glass, window, you have a door, you have wood, you have brick, you have sand, concrete, and then the labor of the builder put it in. All of them come together to build what you call a form, you call a house. It's the same thing with flower. If you look at the flower, there's different components make up that flower. And this come together, you call this flower. So you can take it's this principle pretty much apply everything. You talking about in physics, we talk about matter, molecule make up from atom, and then atom then build up, make up all the material. And even if you look at your own body, it's made up of a lot of cells, different system, right? You have a heart system, a circulation system, you have a digestive system. Within that, there's many different components, your liver, your pancreas, your stomach. So all of that is make up what you call the body. So if you look at those concepts in terms of space dimension, when things come together, what it implies is because the new thing, condition, phenomenon emerge, arise, come from the existing one, then by itself, it doesn't have essence. So another way you call is non-self or essenceless. Now, it's very hard to grasp the concept. So that's one way. If you look at this is my interpretation of the dependent origination. If you look at the spatial dimension, then it's implied there is essenceless or no self. But if you look at in terms of time dimension, like if you look at the event take place and then look it over the time, then you will say the true nature of thing is impermanence, thing changing. Like if you look at the house over the time, the house will start worn down, it start degrade, right? And it's worn down, and eventually over long time, it will collapse. It just become eternal brick. So the impermanent tell you is thing constantly change, but it's change in a specific direction is cessation, destruction. So you can take a look and it occur everything in a very vast is called cosmos, even our universe. It's make a lot of different galaxies. The collection of different galaxies called universe, and with our galaxies, different star, right? Different system of planet. So it's funny when I remember I read one article. The scientists discuss about the fate of the universe, what happened in our universe. So they say, based on the current understanding, that the universe starts from the Big Bang, right? This Big Bang theory create this universe. So what they say right now, there is three possible cases. Either the universe right now is expanding, accelerating. So it's accelerating, and at the end is the galaxy will separate out farther away. Nobody can see it. At the end, we don't see any star in the sky. It's just a black sky. The other way say, well, it's accelerate, but then it will decelerate, and then will reverse the process, like big crunch. It's come back and cause another big explosion. Well, and then the other theory say, well, it's expanding, but it's the constant. But all of them agree is the universe is dying, which is pretty much what the Buddha say. It's conditioned phenomenon. It's changing, but it change in cessation. So just funny. So the implication, if when we go over Four Noble Truth, the Buddha emphasizes a lot about impermanence. So there is three seals in the Dharma: is impermanence, thing changing, and changing in the direction of cessation. And then as a result of that, because thing is decay, change and decay implies suffering. And then the next step is because suffering is not self. So that's most of the part, the way the Buddha tell you, so that you can be able to detach you to the impermanent thing, which is pretty much everywhere. And if you just mindful about impermanence, I think it's helped a lot. Like if you look at this flower pot, what it tell you? So
Flowers die,
yeah,
fell apart.
yes, it's tell you apart. It's already falling apart, and we totally ignore that fact. That's true. That's what it is. The truth of reality is things falling apart, and we see it every day, but we completely oblivious to it. We ignore it, and that's what does mean ignorance. Ignorant, you don't see the truth. It's funny. During one of my retreat, so I walking meditation around my hut, and the hut is in a garden of a sesame tree, not persimmon tree. So there's a lot of fruit dropped down, So I worked like couple of days. I just noticed the fruits on the ground. Then over time, I saw the fruit start rotten, and right at that time, it kicked me. Remember about the impermanence. You know, we as a monk, we learn, we remind, we study, and we talk about impermanence. Even ourselves don't even mindful about impermanence. Not along with the lay person so busy with other business. And when I look down to the ground, that's the really, I mean, it's not the first time, but it's like it struck me about the principle, the law of impermanence that we learn. And on the ground, you see so many leaves, you know, a lot of them is yellow leaves, but there are green one, there are maybe very young one, it's on the ground too. The same thing with the fruit. Something is rotten, something is just brand, you know, fresh one. We don't even think about that. What it tells you is impermanent make no exception. You think about, okay, getting old, you know, it's only applied to old people. Death is only applied to old people, not the young one. But when I look at the leaves, everything, I mean, of course, statistically, a lot of them is yellow leaves. But there's a green one. There's a very young one too. And it tells you what? Impermanent is make no exception. Death make no exception. And if you think about that, we don't have any contract with death. Do you have any contract signed with death? Say, I will live for such and such amount of time, 80 years old, 90 years old? No. But we're not mindful of that. We just think next day we'll be able to get up. Who say that the very next day you go to bed, you will get up? There's a contract say with the death say you will guarantee wake up the next day? No, not even the next day. Right moment you walk out this monastery, or next moment, there's no guarantee. And we live in the reality that's impermanent taking place, but we ignore that and we make always assumption we will always last long. That's what is ignorant. And if you just mindful about impermanence, you will let things go very easy. Think about, I think there's one sutra, the Buddha asked, how long is a lifespan of a human? How long is it? Can you give me an answer? How long a human live?
One breath.
Exactly. So you already know that. You already know that sutra. So some monks say a week or 2 weeks, and then the Buddha say, no, you don't see the way, you don't see the truth. And then some monks say, well, it's a couple of days. The Buddha rejects, say, no, you don't see the truth. Some monks say it lasts about a meal time. No. And then one monk say it's single breath. Then the Buddha say, yes, that's what you see the truth. And think about that. If you exhale out and don't breathe in, then what? You dead. And it lasts as long as it's single breath that you take. That's your life, how fragile and how delicate your life is. So if you keep the impermanence in mind, and you can let things go very easily, in terms of will you willing attach to certain thing, silly thing. Let's say you have very good doctor, excellent one, will come and tell you you have 3 days left to live. Will you hold on to the job that you're working right now? You really go out and work twice, keep looking for another job, make double more money, or you actually let it go and spend the time you want to do. Spend time with your family. So when you think about that, when you keep the impermanent back in your mind, then a lot of things you can let it go. Will you argue or will you care much what people say to you? Much? If you know somebody will die tomorrow, will you say bad thing or harsh speech to them? Or vice versa. If you know you're going to die tomorrow, who cares what the others say? And that by itself only let go a lot of attachment already. So it's funny. There's one lay person come in and say he and his wife argue about what car they want to pick, and he say, I want a stick shift one, and the wife say, no, I want automatic one, and they keep arguing on that one. So I tell him the same thing. Look, what if somebody come in and tell your wife will die in 3 days? Will you let her pick automatic? And say, yeah. Well, and why not now? Why not now? That you have to argue so much on that. And because you make assumption that your wife will live a couple, 40, 50 years more, maybe. But if you think about that, then certain little issue is not seem that much important. Well, it's easy to say. I mean, I'm saying, but I remind myself too. I forget about impermanence. That's why you have to be mindful. If you really have a deep penetrating insight about impermanence, you liberate. And that's what most of the arahant, like some arahant, have the penetrate understanding in impermanence. They liberate themselves by become detached from all the desire. And once you desireless, then pretty much you don't have any attachment. That's what it is. That's we already talk about impermanent. The non-self is more. It's harder because permanent tell you in terms of time you can compare, you can observe, but non-self. So the Buddha say 3 seal, right? Impermanence, which lead to suffering, because thing impermanent, you desire to hold on that, it will destroy, it will degrade. So you desire to hold on that will cause suffering, and then which lead to not self. Some people say non-self. When I think about that, it's more likely not self rather than non-self, because when you're talking about non-self, you have to look at about the spatial dimension, where you actually see it's essenceless. Not self is just reject that notion is self. So anybody think what is self or soul? So self, or we consider self or soul is something like permanent, right? And have some intrinsic essence, like you right now thinking about you have a self or a soul. People say a soul is something permanent, whether it's changing or not, but it's not going to be destroyed. And then it's an essence, it's something that will give the intrinsic nature, make up who you are. and then we'll go to the next slide. That's what I think if we interpret the soul or the self that way. But if you say the self is permanent, then impermanent indicate those impermanent cannot be self. That's by definition what the self is. So one scholar, some people say is the Buddha mean not self rather than non-self. They argue that the Buddha not reject the concept of self. It's just he denied the thing impermanent is self, but he's not reject the idea of self. So that's one group saying that. But there's other group saying no, he literally mean non-self. But if you look at in the spatial angle, that's what the Buddha means. It's non-self because it's essenceless, because it's made up from different things. So by you consider the self is just a conceptual created by the mind. It's harder to grasp. Look at this one. Defeat the birth. Now this before is falling apart. What you look is a flower, right? Well anyway, we explore that the next time. So, any questions? I know it's kind of more soft, philosophical thing, but it's very foundation. Yeah, go ahead.
Can you use ego for the self, the word ego?
Yeah, some people equate ego is self.
So can you just think in terms when you use the word I, ego, and not thinking of others or the non-self?
I'm sorry. By refer I or ego, we already create the concept of self already.
Yeah.
And that is very, the Buddha say that binding to concept of self is so deep that it's very hard to break off, because the binding, any attachment is the one that actually hold you to the cycle of rebirth. What we say craving desire is the cause of suffering, which is listed in the Kalama, right? Remember the wholesome, the very first one Buddha say craving, hatred, and delusion. He doesn't tell you about Four Noble Truths, but those three things, craving, hatred, and delusion, is the second cause, the second truth, which is the cause of suffering. So we will talk more when we talk about the Four Noble Truths, but he doesn't say that. That is the second cause. He just lists you the three causes that lead to the rebirth. Yes.
Back to dependent origination. So let's say that I didn't understand about dependent origination. Then what kind of thoughts or false concepts would I have? In other words, in Buddhism, normally you have opposites. So you have anger, peacefulness, you have monkey mind, clear mind.
Mm-hmm.
So you have somebody who understands dependent origination and somebody who doesn't. The person who doesn't, what kind of delusions would they have or false ideas?
Well, the very think that you don't see it is already create a delusion. Like if you mistake that there's an essence. So the Buddha say if you believe in the self-concept is the delusion or ignorance by itself, because you don't see the truth of dependent origination. If you really penetrate the dependent origination, you will not see anything, condition, phenomenon have essence. That includes yourself.
So somebody who doesn't understand dependent origination, they would think they have a permanent self, for example.
Yeah. Well, most of us, I really believe all of us right here exist here because we believe in the self. Because otherwise you'll not be here. Because if you don't believe in the self or non-self, then you become arahant, and that is not subject to this rebirth cycle. You here because that's very ignorant, and that's very deep ignorance that really hard to remove. That's what the training comes from. It's not impossible. Well, otherwise Buddha cannot be enlightened. So it's possible.
Are there people who kind of don't believe in cause and effect?
Well, if a person have a clear view, they see things, they will say there's a cause and effect. Because I'm not saying karma, I'm saying thing right now in the world there is cause and effect. Everything have a cause. It's not happened by it all. You look at that. Can you find something happen without a cause?
Maybe just the Big Bang.
Well, the Big Bang have its own cause. You don't see it yet.
No, I don't see anything that doesn't have a cause.
So the law of cause and effect is pretty much cover, well, that's what the conditioned phenomenon. The conditioned phenomenon by definition imply there's a condition, there's a cause. That's what we call conditioned phenomenon. Otherwise, I'm not going to call conditioned phenomenon. Hope I answer your questions.
Well, it does, but it's a little unclear because it's easy to see that if somebody is angry, that's not healthy in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very simple for us to see, even for me to see when I become angry. But in terms of dependent origination, I don't see anybody else in this room who kind of doesn't more or less already get that. I mean, I think most people get angry. It's pretty common. Do many people get in a situation where they're not living according to dependent origination? That's what I'm kind of asking.
For my understanding, as long as you don't see the truth, even though on the logical level you might be reasoning out and you say, things don't have essence, everything seems essenceless. It makes sense to you, but it doesn't mean it will transform you so that you will become and behave in that way. Maybe next time we will say why. I mean, people say, thing I observe, definitely not me, right? You see the house not me, right? That's imply you see this body, you observe it, you can feel it. So definitely it's not you. If you consider there's a you. But why you still behave that this body is you?
Because it feels that way. Yeah.
Well,
But it may not really be that way. It just feels that way.
well, we can explore more next time. I think there's a reason why. That we, even though on logic level, you can see things impermanent, it's going to destroy, but then you will behave as if everything is permanent. And then the same thing as logical level, you can see, based on this, it might be have no self or essenceless, but then you behave as if it have an essence. So you still treat how is, an essence. It's how, that's why it's permanent. I know it's very hard. That's why in the Heart Sutra talking about emptiness, pretty much it say about non-self in another way. Every conditioned phenomena is empty in nature. In another way, is you look at it's tell the same thing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
So, to have a baby, the first condition we need is a father. The
Yes.
second condition is a mother, and then other conditions will be food and care and all of that.
No, you still miss the third one,
Yeah, what is there a third?
the
one?
consciousness.
Oh, okay.
Because there's no consciousness, the baby born is pretty much dead, right? So that's why the Buddha say sentient being, being have conscious. So it's just happened you have this kind of body, physical body, right? But if you look at who you are, so the question is who you are, and you examine it carefully. We can talk about now more. That's a key question. Who are you? And you examine it, then you will. That's what the Buddha tried to say. Is Buddhism is try to address human issue, nothing else. It's very practical. It's not something. It's not soft philosophical discussion. The Buddha, I think, the way he teach is practical thing that you can see and experience, not in terms of something you just conceptual out of thin air. Because remember in Kamala, you can reason. It's not that there's anything wrong with reasoning. It's just that at the end you have direct knowledge. That's truly confirmed. I'm sorry. I hope it's
No,
the
no,
impermanent
I was
not
just
make you more like
No.
depressed.
It's funny because if we really look at ourselves, there's nothing here. You take everything away. I mean, what are we? I'm not you say, if I'm an old woman, well, I'm an old woman. So if I take that away, where am I? I mean, all these things that we put together, we're not here. We're not real. We're not.
Well, in that way, yes. That's what the Buddha say on conditioned phenomenon. If you contemplate, it's like a dream.
Yes.
Well, that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's like
all
a dream.
Made up. It's all made
It's
up.
like it's illusion. It's like a water bubble. It's like mirage. It's like a dew, in the morning dew, and it's like a flashing light. That's what the Buddha say. If you contemplate the conditioned phenomena like that, you see the Dharma. Yeah, and that's in Buddhism say everything is unreal. I'm talking about unconditioned phenomenon. And if you think really what you perceive the world through what? How you perceive the world around you. Through five senses, right? Through your eye, your ear, your tongue, your nose, tactile contact. That's how you perceive the world. But if you look at anybody take biology, I hope. So if you look at the way things start with, let's say the eye, right? The eye, the image go back to back up the eye and hit the cone and the rod, cause some biological, we call action potential, traverse to the node, to the neuron, go to the brain, and what the brain does, reconstruction something present, the image you call the object. So think about what you see is not the object itself, it's the image, but not even the image. It's a reconstruction of the brain for that object. So how real is that? We just take one example of the sight, right? The seeing. The same thing for the ear. On the touch tone is come back to action potential, and the brain reconstruct that and tell you that's what you hear, that's what you feel, that's what you said, but that's all created by the mind. So that's why the Buddha say, yeah, everything is just like a dream. Well, I know it's past, yeah.
It's real, Jay.
I'm sorry?
It really is real.
It's real as to you. You
It's
see,
as
it's
real as
real.
it can be. I mean, nothing is there really.
So, well, let's conclude today. May this marriage distribute to all other living beings so that they found happiness and found the way. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha.